Hey, it's your buddy Peace and Harmony with you here today, focusing in on the narcissistic and psychopathic traits of a need for stimulation or a proneness to boredom. We really see this exemplified more so to a heightened degree in that of a psychopath. A psychopath is an individual with a personality disorder who differs from the narcissist in that they really lack a conscience. They lack a sense of morality. They will act without remorse, without guilt, and they really have more of an eye to destroy, hurt, maim people in their environment. So it really takes that exploitation of others' needs to really the next level if you're dealing with a psychopath. So I want to discuss this personality trait, this need for stimulation, this need for risk-taking, this need to exploit the needs of others and be constantly, seeking of supply or seeking of a victim to exploit, and how it relates to a narcissist as well as how it relates to a psychopath, because they are on the same spectrum. They are on the same personality disorder checklist. However, it's just more pronounced, it's more severe, it's more resistant to change in the psychopath than the narcissist. So really, what is this proneness to boredom? What is this need for constant stimulation? We see this manifest and presented in the narcissist as really their constant need to create crazy making, seek supply, constantly be the center of attention, cause issues where really no issues should be present, so causing trouble in essence, and the pathological lying that goes along with that. They really do not have a sense of center or contentment, and so this risky behavior is really even magnified to a greater degree in the psychopath. So dangerous sex, dangerous financial transactions, pushing the envelope, pushing the border, pushing the limit, where it really becomes very risky. They get energized by this, they get juiced by it, they get aroused by it, they get charged up, they get completely animated by this sort of transaction and this daredevil behavior. Really kind of living dangerously, living on the edge, putting people's lives in jeopardy, putting business in jeopardy, being really sexually inappropriate, and using that as a stimulation and a tool to get you addicted to this heightened sense of fear or risk or threat. And the narcissist will do this also to a degree where they constantly keep you agitated in that state of fight or flight. So this is a space that they live in, which is extremely taxing and really depleting of energy to the person who's trying to just function normally in a relationship. So unbeknownst to them, really they get caught up in the spiral of agitation, fear, and this hyper-arousal state, which the brain itself gets addicted to. When we talk about people who have, flashbacks and these intrusive thoughts and these feelings of terror, these feelings that they have to just contact them and then the pain would go away. If they could just, have another day with them, another chat, another text, so they kind of essentially give in, even though they know it's not right for them. It's because this hyper-aroused state has created a neural network in the mind that keeps you addicted to it. Because the brain itself is able to really clear its perceptions in a heightened state, such as war. If your life is being threatened, you're on a heightened state of awareness. You're really you're fully charged up. You're fully engaged. Your blood is filled with neuropeptides, heightening your reactivity. Your body's moving quickly. Your heart is racing. Your lungs are really hyperventilating almost, and you begin to sweat. You begin to really engage in that fight or flight, which is the adrenal system going, and it's this heightened and reaction to a stimulus outside of you. So really what ends up happening is you get then connected to this source which is outside of you to continue to perpetrate that sort of cycle that, which essentially is a rush. So really it begins as a pleasure source where which is instilled in you in the love bombing phase. In the love bombing phase, where you become originally addicted to them, originally hooked, where they're, calling you by sweet nicknames, and they're sussing you out, finding what your weaknesses are. And then they end up basically finding out what your weaknesses are and then turning those around against you. So what does that mean? For example, if you had a very difficult childhood, they're going to notice that. They're going to pick that up right away. The narcissist and the psychopath have a heightened ability to be able to read people, their emotions, especially their vulnerabilities and weaknesses, read those, and then turn that around against them. So, for example, if they, see that you need friends, or, you have trouble at home, they're going to exploit that in you, and they're going to coddle you. They're going to first break you down and then give you that satisfaction of your weakness, but then they're going to turn it around viciously and use it against you to dehumanize you, depersonalize you, and essentially break down your firewall. I'm using an example of like a computer because this is essentially what is happening. They're breaking down that firewall, which is essentially all your natural defenses, your protection, your self-protection. They annihilate those. They break those down, and they get in and they essentially install new hardware in your system, which is reaction to them. And so then, you're then, instead of operating from your internal guidance, your internal locus of control, you're operating from an external locus of control. Their hardware is essentially their hardware that they have instilled in your mind. And I know that this is very advanced, but I want to have this information and content out there for you so you can really begin to grasp how the narcissist and psychopath is able to control you, and why they are so power hungry, why they're so control hungry, and why they derive pleasure out of this. They derive pleasure out of it because they're not able to connect with others in a sort of meaning and genuine manner. They're lacking in empathy. Literally, it's lacking. It's a deficit. It's a physiological basis. They're lacking in empathy, and they have a heightened sense of self-importance to a pathology sense. And this causes them, it drives them to control others as a way of satisfying this internal need. So just like you might have an internal need to eat, sleep, go to the bathroom, etc., they have an internal need to control others. So it's just part of their everyday internal mechanisms, and it's just part of their satiation. So when you're being controlled by them, in terms of this need for stimulation and boredom, they're going to heighten their sense of fear. They basically keep themselves entertained by controlling others, having power over others, and then keeping them in this fear state. So that's why it becomes originally very enticing and pleasurable, because it's the love bombing. But then they get into the degradation, the devaluing, where they use ploys against you, the criticism, the name calling, the blame shifting, basically where they're turning things against you and being like, you're the crazy one, and all the other ploys that are involved in the cycle, and then essentially getting into the discard where they're trying to push you away, and yet they're still trying to keep you hooked a little bit. So you want to exit out of that cycle as soon as possible, and and realize that this cycle that they perpetuate, where they're constantly risky, constantly trying to keep things exciting and stimulated. Realize that this is a way to keep you engaged in a very destructive and dangerous hyper agitation or hyper terror state, which is, risk and danger. And they've then instilled that along with all the sexualization that they do. So it becomes really overwhelming to the body and almost in a state of shock. So you really do need to unplug from that and realize that that stimulation is trying to keep you engaged from outside of you. So really the answer is to pull back within and realize that your fear reaction is coming from this person who is basically outside of you. So just as you can move a coffee cup, and take it to another room and put it out of sight, you can do the same thing with this sort of hyper effect from a narcissist or a psychopath. So realize that this is just a cycle. It's just a whirlwind of energy they're trying to sweep you up in. But you can step out of that vortex. You can actually physically and mentally, emotionally step out of it. And that is really very important, to detach. And I say let go. And I say separate. And I say come to that internal locus of control. Because when you get into that, and really you can begin to arrive there in that meditative state where you kind of close your eyes and you get in touch with yourself and in your source, you're able then to quiet down all those visual and motor and olfactory senses that really are plugged into them. And you need to unplug and get focused within, back within yourself. And then begin to envision really a better life for yourself. And we utilize the frontal cortex. This is, again, part of the quantum healing, and where we're utilizing that visualization for the future, where it's self-directed. So it's self-directed, and you're using that visualization, and you're using, that sort of image of your future, how you would like things, what you would like to become, what you would like to really become involved in, your ideal for yourself, where you get that picture in mind. So really, if you're caught up in this whirlwind of fear, of reaction to them, of their control, of their power over you, step outside of that vortex of energy. Come back within you into that inner self, that inner sense of being, and really kind of quiet down, close your eyes if you will, and then just think of unplugging and entering into your internal source, your internal self, and then getting a sense of visualization for you personally, and begin to really visualize and daydream, if you will, about a life that is really most happy and satisfying for you, things that are really important to you. And imagine yourself there doing these things, expanding and growing, really participating in all the valuable activities that are special and unique to you. And begin to do this several times a day. And little by little, you'll begin to detach and unplug from this perpetual cycle of fear and risk behavior and dangerous sort of reaction, and really plug into yourself and get involved more in your internal world, and begin to control it from the inside out, following your dream, your vision of how you truly want things to be and truly exist in that new emotional place. Peace and harmony with you here today. I hope these videos do help. Please share and please subscribe for more great tools, videos, discussion, and support.